Well, it is the New York Times, but it is an opportunity for the New York Times to go much deeper, to have much more comprehensive coverage of deals, of Wall Street, of the deal makers. It's primarily web-based, but we also have a presence in the newspaper Tuesday through Friday. Reporters write for the paper and for the web. It's being able to use video. It's doing things on mobile devices. It's a news operation that exists on many different platforms.
Now, there's been some discussion that it's a kind of maybe a little bit clubby or a bit of a cheerleading. Mm-hmm. It's different than sort of maybe some traditional journalism in the New York Times business section. I don't know if why that perception is, or how you might respond to some of those criticisms, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Right. Well, I think first of all, it's important to realize that it is part of the New York Times. It's part of the Business Day section. Larry Ingrassia, the financial editor, oversees Dealbook. So I guess I disagree with the premise of that it's still very much in keeping with the integrity tradition of New York Times journalism. We do a lot more, simply because it's the web and it's our interest. We do more about Wall Street. So I don't think it is anything that's necessarily clubby, but it is journalism that is primarily intended for the Wall Street community, in the same sense that a website like Politico, for example, is very much aimed at the community inside the Beltway. Our primary audience is Wall Street, but I don't think we don't do any favors for them. I think it's very honest, hard-hitting journalism we do.
What is the opportunity for business journalism? You know, Politico has obviously proven itself in this completely out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But you'd think that maybe business journalism, financial journalism is so heavily covered. What's
that's a good point.
Here
well, I think there's this incredible appetite for financial journalism. I think people outside of Wall Street, particularly amid the financial crisis and afterward, are very curious about this world and how it works and who these people are. So in the same sense that Politico appeals to people outside Washington, people who want to understand the political process and how sausage is made, I think people outside Wall Street want to understand that as well. And for people on Wall Street, it's the amount of information they get is amazing. It's Bloomberg, Reuters, the Wall Street Journal, Financial Times. Is just, but they can't seem to get enough. And I think Dealbook is an opportunity to do a lot more, to have it much more focused, to have, we're not always going to have everything, we're not always going to be first, but I think we can be smart, we can be original, and people respond to that.
So tell us about the mix, the evolution. Mm-hmm. In the old days, it was just a email blast. It's still an email blast, but tell us about some of the other elements, particularly video we're interested in, and other things.
Well, it's very much the brainchild of Andrew Ross Sorkin, who has been a reporter here for more than a decade. He's the mergers and acquisitions reporter. Andrew started this because he was, for his own reporting purposes, was sort of accumulating links and reports from all different kinds of media to understand what he needed to cover. And so for him, the idea was, well, other people could use this too, this sort of aggregated list of everything that affects M&A and Wall Street. Started sending it out as a newsletter in 2001, drew a huge audience, more than 200,000 people very quickly. In 2006, it started as a website. So it's been steadily building, and the most important development now has been this recent relaunch. We've hired a number of people, 8 reporters, some from the Wall Street Journal, Chicago Tribune, Huffington Post, TechCrunch, and the idea is to focus much more on original content, original reporting, breaking news, doing analysis of the top stories, doing our own takes on the top stories, and being less of an aggregator. We do a fair amount of that. But if you come to Dealbook on a regular basis, you'll see the site is being updated, and it's a much more reflects the original work of our reporters and our columnists. We all have a number of columnists. We have some law professors, Stephen Davidoff, the Deal professor, who sort of gets into the nitty-gritty of the legal language of transactions. Peter Henning, who writes about white-collar crime, which is very much in the news these days. And we have another law professor writing about bankruptcy and others. So I think you get a much more analytical, deeper coverage than you might find in other places in the financial press.
And you've introduced video recently.
Yeah, video is very important because I think, with a website, particularly at a newspaper company like this, you want to think of the site as more than just an extension of the print. You want to be much more dynamic and vibrant. And video, I think, goes a long way toward doing that. It shows the personalities behind many of the top stories, and it also can show the personalities of the people covering the story. I think people respond to that, and it's been very popular so far.
What's in store for 2011?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, we have many plans. We hope to do much more with data, being able to do more analytical crunching of numbers, showing what's behind the deals, what's behind valuations of companies. I hope to do more with video, to have possibly do more doing podcasts and other sort of multimedia and interactive graphics. We're not finished hiring, so we'll be expanding our editorial staff as well. So I think you expect a lot more features on Dealbook going forward.